You moved here, you moved your headquarters here. We have the F1 races here. So how does that change your outlook on the prospects for Miami, given that so many people are now here?
Well, thanks for having me. I did move down here in late 2016, so I feel like the Mayflower. I was one of the first people from the north, it seemed like, that actually repotted. It's not true, but certainly the beginning of this second wave. In Miami, I used to come here as a child, so it's only gotten better and better, really. And I'm impressed with the kind of development that's taken place, the infrastructure improvements. As an example, here on Miami Beach, they didn't tear down the convention center, they reskinned it and expanded it. And then they built a park in front of it. And the infrastructure that will come when they connect the beach to the CBD of Miami, the Central Business District, with a monorail, which is going to be privately funded. It's just getting better and better, and it's gaining momentum as more people move down here and bring more culture. So F1, can't be more excited, going to the races tomorrow and Sunday. You know, as a hotelier in part, we have the one hotel here. Miami's been adding so many events. So for a hotel, when I was younger, when I was running Starwood Hotels, Miami, I called it a one-hump camel. You had the winter when everybody came down and it was really exciting, and the rates were good, but you were empty other parts of the year. It's certainly the summer. Then Latin America, South America got really more affluent, and their winter is our summer, so when the snowbirds left, they filled in. Now, but you still had the off seasons. So now you have Crypto Week, Tech Week, now followed by F1. So the hotels are having a field day, and it's extending the season, and it's good for the merchants, and it's good for the city. So, you know, this is a city. I came from, I grew up in Connecticut, really, and spent most of my career up there. And I spent a lot of time in New York City, of course. I lived in Chicago for 7 years. And these cities were you heard Mayor Suarez, I mean, where you have the government working with you to help you succeed. It's unbelievable. It's a whole new cup of tea. I've never experienced it. So, we actually can call the city and actually things get done. It's like crazy.
You sold your place. You sold your place in Manhattan to put a bigger bet on this city. I heard you say a couple days ago that you are surprised at how many people are actually back in New York, given all of the changes it saw during the pandemic. So when you think about the long-term prospects for the capital of the country in terms of finance, in terms of technology, in terms of talent, which wins?
Well, I mean, New York's New York, so New York proved, as I think we all thought it would, it's a haven. As it gets less expensive, it was a haven for young talent. And people, New York is a 24-hour city, and there's only one New York. It's a great place. Having said that, the headwinds of people feeling unsafe, criminal activities. I myself, walking around the village, didn't feel very safe, and I've been going there, you know, I'm old, so I've been doing that a lot. And you know, that I feel differently in Miami. Despite the fact you see this, media covers a event that usually happens around Memorial Day between 5th and 15th Street on the beach. The rest of the beach doesn't really feel that activity. And the city, you know, very high taxes. The taxes keep going up. The attitude towards business is not friendly. The government is dysfunctional. Rent control shows up, and the unions make everything hideously expensive to build and operate. We can't, in our hotels in the city, we're the largest hotel operator in the city. You know, we can't come up with a recipe to make a restaurant successful when it's unionized. And I don't know who they think that benefits. And now with the DAs allowing, not prosecuting crime. I mean, I was in San Francisco just last week. We have an office there. You want to cry. And I wonder who thinks this is a good thing. And I know who's funding these DA elections. And I just want to ask them, like, what do they think they're trying to accomplish? Because they're not helping anyone, and they're destroying historically wonderful cities. San Francisco is in serious trouble. And maybe you have to have a terrible crisis before you have the sunrise, but the crisis is no fun to look at. I mean, walking into a Walgreens and you can't even buy a toothbrush, you have to open the cabinet with a key, find someone to open it for you. So that's not progress, and I wish they would stop calling the progressive movement progressive, because it's really socialist and communist. It has nothing to do with progressive.
Let's take a step back and talk about this in the lens of pricing, the economy, and the idea of people being priced out of places like San Francisco. You mentioned almost the opposite happening in New York now. What about Miami? I mean, prices are rising so quickly here when it comes to real estate values. How do A, young people move here, live here, work here, and B, does Miami risk becoming San Francisco one day over the long term, given that?
No, New York and San Francisco are dominated by blue legislatures, both at the state level and at the city level. And the city council is more left than the mayor himself. And Miami and the red states or the purple states don't have any of that situation. These are non-union states. For the most part, the right-to-work states, and they're winning. I mean, the facts are: look at Texas, look at Tennessee, look at Florida. There are more job growth. There's more people moving to cities, and the state of Florida ran a $12 billion budget surplus. They're not even in a deficit. So, by the way, they make it up with real estate taxes. You pay a lot of real estate taxes here, much more than you do in the Northeast, but you don't pay income taxes at the state level or capital gains taxes. Miami has definitely gotten more expensive, but it's still cheaper to live here. Like rentals are cheaper here, even though they've gone up 25% year over year. And like any place, there'll be further out development and opportunities for people to live less expensively. And the problem Miami has and Southern Florida has is the Everglades on one side, the ocean on the other. It's like a tube of toothpaste that's squeezed north to Palm Beach, and then now to Jupiter, and then up to Vero Beach. So they're going to have to come back, which they're doing, and redevelop what's here. So you're seeing neighborhoods get, Miami Beach was kind of run down, and now it is getting renovated. It's getting, it reminds me of Cartagena in Colombia, because you go there and half the stock is, a third of the stock is finished renovation, a third is under construction, and a third hasn't begun its renovation. Miami is further along than that, Miami Beach is at least.
So as we're talking about blue versus red and politics in cities and how it plays out, as somebody who owns many hotels, oversees so many places where large groups of people gather, when you look at what's happening in terms of the parental rights and education bill that was signed into law by Governor DeSantis, are you concerned at all about how it'll impact certain inflows in terms of concessions and events into the city?
I'm going to stay away from that kind of politics. It's not my thing. I'd say that it's not helpful. I mean, partly it's the media made a bill that, when they say the name of the bill, I agree. The bill itself was just really don't teach sexuality from kindergarten to third grade, which in schools, which I would like to be the person to talk to my children about the birds and the bees. It's one of the great rites of passage for a father with his child. So, I don't necessarily think that was a terrible thing. It doesn't actually mention the word gay, the bill. But I understand. I was listening to Bob Iger speak yesterday about the issue, and I think it was nonsense, and it's awful to go after Disney, which is distracting people from real issues, the things that this country should care about, which is education, improving education. If I were Governor DeSantis, I'd take his $12 billion surplus and put it behind teachers. That's how you build a great state. That's how you fix the issues in this country. So, he should give teachers raises. We should build more schools. We should educate our youth. We should invest in our low-income housing communities, our poorer communities, and improve their lives, and that will help the state grow in a more balanced way. The state of Florida itself, it's not just Miami. I mean, we own 115,000 apartments. We're the largest apartment owner in the country. We own 60 million square feet of office. We own stuff all over the world. We have over 100 billion in assets, 120 billion in assets. We have to invest our capital where we think our investors are going to get the best returns, and we've tilted away. When I was growing up, I used to invest on both coasts. Like, you would buy California and New York, you would never visit these states because they have infinite supply theoretically, because there's light zoning in places like Texas. You can build an office building in your backyard if you want. So, but now, for the last 7 years, our focus has been in the growing, in the Sun Belt states, which are attracting businesses. I saw today, Boeing was leaving Chicago for Virginia? I mean, these cities are killing themselves. The worst part is the politicians want these people to leave. In New York City, the legislature said, we want values to go down, it will help our people. They're just creating a negative reinforcement cycle where the social burden is falling on an ever smaller group of people. You have some altruistic older people who have not yet left New York, but it's becoming punitive to them. And for the favor of paying 35% or 15% of their income in taxes, they get ridiculed in the media and the press, and half of America doesn't pay any tax. And I was on TV the other day talking about this, and I got accosted by a reporter from another network. And that isn't the point. The point is, people, if you want to invest in solar, which I do, or renewables, which I do, heretofore, it didn't make economic sense. We actually have a renewables business. You needed a wind credit. You needed a tax credit for the government to propel investment into those. The only people who can invest in that stuff are wealthy people. They're getting the credits. We were actually inducing them to lower their taxes by investing in stuff. The federal government has a payoff on that because we don't have to rely on foreign oil. And we have less pollution, less cleanup because we're investing in renewables. That's how the system works. But the media has distorted this. The millionaires and billionaires are cheating. They're actually, most of us, including me, and I got called out on this by ProPublica or something, I'm paying I paid 34% tax rates. I checked last 2 years. So, I'm happy to pay my share. I just wish the government would use our money more wisely.
So another issue that's gotten extraordinarily politicized is cryptocurrency. And we took a poll on Twitter, and apparently, when we asked our audience what the biggest barriers to crypto adoption would be, 46% said regulatory scrutiny. Another 27% said risk-averse investors. Another 27% said central bank competition. You're an investor who I know has been thinking about cryptocurrency to some degree. What do you think about all that? And also, what are you going to do?
I wonder who you asked. Because most people would. I think regulatory scrutiny is that mean you don't want to report the fact that you bought it or you sold it or you don't want to pay taxes on it. Because I think it has to be taxed. Like it is a security or a currency. They can decide which one it is. I've publicly said everyone should have 0.5% of their net worth in Bitcoin. And my theory was if it goes to $1 million a coin, you'd kill yourself if you don't own it. And if it goes to zero, you'll be fine, and your relative net worth to the rest of the crypto kids would go up because they'd be broke. That's been my adopted theory. I don't really care. It's 0.5% of my net worth or 1%. Somebody said it was 3 or 4. It's not. The digital blockchain is going to change the world and disrupt financial transactions. We were talking about this last night I was coming home from California with a very knowledgeable person. I mean, companies like Visa, anything where there's a payment and a transfer payment, like we should issue our funds in tokens. Our investors could exchange interest in our funds frictionless with no lawyers, no transfer documents. There are a lot of, it's going to happen. Now, the value of all these tokens and coins is up in the air. I mean, I don't think anyone can tell you, and they're all like, some of them are like little Ponzi schemes. You use it and they pay you more of the same thing and you get more of it and you use it, and then you see the same herd mentality in the coins that you see in the stock market, which Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger this weekend called a casino, and it was absolutely a speculative mess. It completely divorced from anything I ever learned in valuation. And you hear how you were a dinosaur, and I kept saying, you guys should have been alive in 2001 when the NASDAQ dropped 85% and companies disappeared overnight. And it's just happening again. You're seeing the exact same run. Every 20 years, people forget, and they do it again. But it was crazy. I had people telling me that 100 times revenues for companies are cheap, well-known firms, right? I mean, that's insanity.
Listen, we're at this place in the economy where the Fed raised interest rates the most that it has in more than 20 years. Inflation is at the highest in more than 40 years. So what are you looking at in terms of the repercussions that the markets are going to feel based on all these moves that have not happened in a very, very long time?
So I'm going to stick to real estate for a second. You basically have a tug of war now between interest rates, rental growth, and which can overwhelm, and is at the moment, interest rates. And then I think partly supply, which is going to get hurt by higher costs and the fact that replacement cost is rising 20%, because both labor and materials, if you can even find the materials, are that much more expensive. So real estate is having a bit of we're a safe haven. Usually in inflationary times, you want to own property because it's so much harder. And the theory, just for people who don't understand how real estate works, if a building costs $1,000 to build and you want to get a 10% return, and you get $100 rents. If the building costs $2,000 a foot to build instead of $1,000, and you still want to get the 10% return, you've got to get $200 rents. So in-place rents have to rise to justify new construction. So in-place inventory is protected. That's the generic theory. And it does work. I mean, you won't see a lot of the permitted stuff. You're seeing right now the housing market slow down. It'll probably really slow down even harder. You have the highest mortgage rates in 19 years. But there's a tremendous lack of supply in the housing market. We underbuilt housing in the last decade to prior decades by almost 15 million units. So you're seeing a squeeze, and now they'll have to rent because they can't afford to buy. So that's okay for rentals, and we own 100,000 apartments, 15,000 homes that we rent, and we continue to buy more, but we're constructive of where we buy them, where affordability is still okay. And rising wages is really good. We're happy about half this inflation. We should be jumping for joy that wages are up 5.5%. And the fact that I have to pay a housekeeper $20 an hour instead of $14, I'm actually okay with. I think it's fine. That's the way capitalism is supposed to work. We're helping those who are most in need. On the other hand, the disruptions of the supply chain, which are real and are going to get worse because China just shut down and we already have the inventory. It's 3 months from now and 4 months from now. When we run out of inventory, we want to replace our stocks, and we don't have the stuff. That's when you're going to see. So you're going to see inflation, and raising rates isn't going to help the supply chain. It's just going to dampen the economy and hurt employment. Raising rates at the pace they're talking about, where they were very late to the party, and my guess is they're going to overdo it on the way up because the economy was slow anyway, because we've already spent or about to spend the rest of our stimulus checks. Frankly, sadly, on higher gas, higher oil, and higher interest payments.
So is it the tail wagging the dog here? You saw
Food
this
too.
Wage growth, but now you're seeing a lot of people start talking about the potential for a recession once again.
Oh, we're going to have a slowdown, and the question is how big, and will it be shallow? Or there's no doubt. I've on record, fourth quarter, first quarter, it'll slow dramatically. And frankly, all the geopolitics and the politics of our country are not helping anything. It doesn't make anyone feel particularly stable, and the prospects of the presidential election in front of us, and most people saying, isn't there anyone else in the United States who wants to run for president? That's I'm not going to go there, but I would like to go there. So I mean, you can't. I mean, we don't have a lot of great choices right now. Hopefully, there'll be a dark horse that'll show up that we'll all embrace and will pull this country back together. Because the average, you hear the movement about the police. 99% of policemen are good people, right? And some of this stuff just gets so hysterical, it's just ripping us apart. And I'm 60. I mean, I've never seen the media try to get the whole country hysterical on one side and hysterical on the other side. And 43% of the country is independent. We're the biggest party, and we have nobody representing us. And the parties are thinning out on both sides. You're getting Bob Corker retires, all the moderates retire because they can't deal with the loonies in their parties, and so the parties become even more concentrated in the loonies, and then the media goes like this, and we watch Fox and watch CNN, and I can't find anyone to watch. I'm going to watch the cartoon channel. It'll be more informative. So, I mean, we really need a candidate in the middle. We need and the country's moved on. Like Roe versus Wade, holy moly, what is wrong with you people? So, in my opinion, I totally understand late-term abortion, but you want to eliminate people with rape and incest? Really? These aren't issues of national importance, frankly. Leave it to the states if you have to. Let's focus on stuff that matters to this country, like fixing our education system. I went to public high school. Today, every parent says, I can't put my kid in public high school. That's terrible. And we have to fix that. And that would fix our country. So, we have a lot of stuff that really matters. We need an energy policy. How could we not have a national energy policy? We're destroying the earth. I argue with these people on the right, are you out of your minds? We had, I think, 71,000 daily temperature records last year. There's going to be drought in the Midwest. I own Mammoth Mountain, a ski resort. We had 4 years of drought. It was I looked at 100 years of records. We never had drought like that. So anyway, why am I talking about this? How did you get me so far off? I feel like as a cocktail, we should have a cocktail if we're doing this.
I wish I could follow
depressed.
up on every one of those things.
Anyone in the front row could run for president. We'd be better off.
Sternlicht. That's Barry Sternlicht, the CEO and chairman of Starwood Capital. He'll be around.